Hello, Grass and Gits. Welcome back to Happy Crop and Wargaming. So this was a user-requested video, which honestly was a great idea. So a lot of, especially newer players, but a lot of intermediate and even advanced players have no idea how to navigate the massive rule set that is Warhammer 40,000. What rules are in the core book, what are in the commentary, what are in the whatever. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a super good, clean-cut guide to where you need to look for which rules, and I'm going to let you know what you do need to buy and what you don't need to buy. So this is a little bit of a purchase guide for you as well. So let's get right into it. I'm going to navigate the complicated rules and make everything super, super simple so that when you want to reference things, it becomes like butter. Super great. All right. So basically, here's the deal. GW has been complicating the rules by simplifying them. So 10th edition is probably the best edition from a gameplay standpoint, without a doubt. Now, some people could argue that maybe the diversity of the armies on the table is a little bit less ideal than what it was, say, in 9th edition, which was amazing, but the rule set are just awesome. However, a lot of times our rules become very quickly out of date. And luckily, GW in 10th edition is updating them very regularly to make sure that you always have up-to-date action that can really point you into the best way to play the game. So the trick here is that you have to figure out where to find the rules. There are like 6 different documents that actually have rules, and it can be a little annoying to navigate. So I'm going to make sure that you know where all of that is. And just, you don't have to pay for very many of these rules. Most of the rules are pretty basically free. So where to start? My first big recommendation is do not buy the rules book. The core rules book, especially if you're newer guys, you do not need it. Games Workshop has done an amazing thing this edition, and they have just said, hey, you know what? Here are the rules. They are all available for free on warhammercommunity.com under the downloads tab. So you can go get the entire core rule set for complete free. The commentary, which I'll talk about in a little bit, I'll explain what that is, free. The points, free. All of it, everything is free, what you need, and it's all constantly being updated online, so you always have access to the most latest releases that you possibly need. So you don't have to worry about, which balance patch do I fit in here? Which balance patch do I fit in here? You don't need 20,000 different books. You just need access to the internet and you have everything. All right, so there are 6 main sources of rules that you need to be aware of. I'm going to walk through each individual one of these, okay? You have 1, the core rules. That's what would be in that rule book. Now that rule book, a lot of it will just stay exactly the same. So for example, command phase, movement phase, shooting phase, fight phase, all this stuff that doesn't change. But there are going to be certain things that do change. Then we have what's called the core rules commentary. The commentary is the thing that's going to be explaining in detail how certain weird scenarios interact, or if there's like a keyword you're unsure of, it'll go into detail on all that stuff. You've got the match play rules. These are things for competitive play specifically. So for example, we are currently in what's called Pariah Nexus, which will change things specifically for competitive play. We also call this the chapter approved. We have the balanced data slates, which are going to be the semi-annual rules updates to the game, where we're going to balance data sheets and armies by changing their rules. Then we have the Munitorum Field Manual. This is where all the points for all the models are constantly kept up to date. So if you're playing this game and you're looking at the points cost in all of your army books, ignore them. They're not real. Those are what happened when it was printed, but luckily we're in the 21st century and we know that we can constantly update these things to make sure that the game is as balanced as possible. So you're always going to check the Munitorum Field Manual, and it's very easy to get to. I'm going to show you it all. And then you finally have the Army Codices, which are the rules specific to your army. Outside of that, you've got 2 other sources. You've got narrative expansions. So like right now there's a crusade for the Pariah Nexus, and that has nothing to do with competitive play or really the core rules at all, but that is for the more narrative is what it is. It's just a different way of playing Warhammer, and it's not any less valid. It's actually very fun. It's just not for competitive play, which is not a problem. But if you want to play narrative, then that gives you rules basically to make the game more casual is probably the wrong term, but casual is the term I'm going to use. And then you have the GW Warhammer 40k app, which thankfully in 10th edition is really good. I know people are going to bitch and moan about everything that exists, so they're going to say there's problems with it, and there are a few problems with it, but the app is actually exceptionally easy to navigate. You can build your army list on there, and it has all the rules references automatic. So let's get into these things in detail, knowing why are you looking at the core rules versus the commentary. Core rules. First off, it's completely free. It's online. You don't need to buy the book. Boom. And I do, by the way, recommend that everyone read the core rules. I cannot tell you how many people think they know the rules of Warhammer, but they've never read the rules, and they just think they know the rules. You don't know the rules. You're wrong. competitive players are not being assholes when they're just saying that you're playing the rules wrong. You just haven't read the rules. So I highly recommend you read the rules. It's that simple. Right. Now this is the base part of the game. So this is movement phase, shooting, charging. How do you interact in all of these different aspects? It's the bones of the game. And when you read this, you're going to have 80% of everything that you need to play Warhammer 40,000. So you need to read it. It's really not that long. The book is massive, but a lot of it is lore, pictures, things like this. The actual core rules of the game really is not all that much. Now, this is not the place you're going to go for referencing for like obscure factoids or like how does this army rule interact with this army rule. That's all going to be rules commentary, FAQs, stuff like that. So this is the core aspects of the game. If you want to know, hey, what order do I activate in the fight phase? This is where you go. All right, the next one is going to be the rules commentary. This is the lawyer's best friend. It's a little bit of an annoying document, but it's very, very necessary. This is the annoying reference that just tons of people have never read. And it's going to be hard just to actually read through the whole thing. I've done it, and so have a lot of other people. But most of the time, you're going to reference this when you're not sure about a certain interaction. So, for example, okay, we know that the Infiltrators, which is a Space Marine unit, has an ability that says when units arrive from reserves, they cannot arrive within 12 inches of this unit. And that's important to understand. Now, there are some obscure things that happen in the game. So, for example, with Grey Knights, when they are picked up, they're picked up into, I think it's called Teleport Assault. So they're not technically picked up into Deep Strike. So when they arrive on the table, do they have to, can they land within 9 inches? Or do they have to land within outside of 12 inches as well as like normal deep strikes? Well, the commentary answers this question. So they have a little blurb on it. They say any unit being set up on the table counts as coming in from reserves, which means they will have to arrive via outside of 12 inches of that specific unit. So little factoids like this. And don't get that confused. Yes, someone's going to comment. I know you can be set up out of a transport and not count as coming from reserves. I know, I'm not stupid. Give me a little credit here. But anything that's coming in from deep strike, strat reserves, things like that, they're all treated the same in reference to that rule. And all these little weird interactions are going to be included in the rules commentary. So if you have some abilities that you're unsure of, always make sure you check the rules commentary if you don't know how they actually interact. This will also include like FAQs for interpreting certain rule interactions. It'll also have all of the updates to the core rules inside of it. This is, once again, free on warhammercommunity.com, and I highly recommend you spend a little bit of time with it, especially when you're getting a little deeper into the game. On the surface level, it's not that necessary, but once you start getting a little deeper, tournament play, stuff like this, you definitely need to check out the rules commentary. All right, next thing to read is the matched play rules. This is also known as chapter approved, and guess what? It's completely free. So currently we are in the Pariah Nexus, and this changes roughly yearly. So every year you're going to get a new chapter approved. What the chapter approved is this is where you're going to get all of your secondary scoring and all of your primary scoring. So all the missions and all the secondary tactical cards that you can draw all come from this, and they will be updated once a year, keeping the game fresh, innovative, and exciting. This is also going to include some very specific FAQs, frequently asked questions, and certain rulings that apply specifically to this version of matched play. So for example, in Pariah Nexus, you can use the New Orders stratagem, which is a general stratagem that any army can use to redraw a secondary card. You can use it every single turn, not once per battle like you can in the core rules. So this will have some slight modifications. It's typically 1 page, maybe 2 pages long, and it's very, very easy to read through, and you really only have to read through it once a year. No big deal. But if you're looking for things like that, this is where missions, primary missions, secondary stuff, you're always going to want to reference the chapter approved. All right. Balance status late, once again, completely free. This is the biggest rules update that GW puts out, and they put it out roughly every two times a year, so roughly every 6 months. It's an incredibly necessary document, and this is something that every single good competitive game in the world does. They do balance updates to make sure the game is fair and innovative for all of their players. So this is where GW is going to make rules and abilities updates to armies. If they're changing a stratagem, if they're changing a unit rule, if they're changing a detachment rule, that's going to be in this. The most recent one we had was done this month, December 2024, and it radically shook up the game. So you definitely need to know what the balance status is. You will find this on warhammercommunity.com/downloads. It'll be under the core document page. Now, this is required to have fair balanced games, and ever since GW started doing these, Warhammer has become an infinitely more fair and balanced game. And they're going to continue doing it, and it's one of the greatest things that they've done as like a little love letter to the fans to make sure that broken, uninteractive rules don't stay in play. So this will have very substantial impacts to the way that you play, but it doesn't ever change core mechanics. So for example, your movement phase is always the movement phase. You move, you advance, you fall back. That's always going to remain the same. Shooting phase, you select targets. This is always going to stay the same. So this won't change core mechanics to the game, but it will change a lot of things on the outside. This will also be reflected in the app that Games Workshop made for Warhammer 40,000. There can be a little bit of a lag, but when you're looking up rules in there, all of this is imported into that. Then we've got the Munitorum Field Manual, which is also completely free. Very basic document. All it does is it gives you the points cost of each model in the game. So you just scroll to your army, whether you're playing the orcs or the admech or whatever, and it says, hey, this is how much every unit costs. This is how much every enhancement costs. This is, once again, updated twice a year. Now, GW, typically what they'll do is every 3 months, they'll give you a Munitorum Field Manual, and then in the next 3 months, they'll do a balanced data slate. So they try to balance the game with points and with rules, just an offsetting them each time to keep the game flowing, fresh, but still consistent enough that it's still fun to play. This is also updated and reflected in the app when the app gets updated, but once again, there can be a little bit of a lag on when it's updated into the app. So remember, don't ever bother looking in your army books. Those rules are not real. The rules will change dramatically. And luckily, it's digital, so we can just update these things much more quickly than we used to be able to. Then we go into the first paid rule set that you have, and this is the Army Codices. Now, you really need to have an Army Codex if you're trying to play Warhammer 40,000. So if I'm playing the Orcs, I'm going to buy the Orcs Codex. Yes, there are ways that you can pirate and you can steal the rules online. Everyone knows that, but don't listen. You love this game. I love this game. It's okay for Games Workshop to make a little bit of money on the game that is a massive, massive hobby for you. It's not a problem. So Army Codexes, they generally cost about $60. I do hope in the future that Games Workshop will allow you to just download a digital version and you don't have to buy the physical book. But these things have tons of lore in them, painting guides, artwork, and of course you've got all the rules. So you've got all the strats, all the stratagems, the detachments, the enhancements, everything that you could ever need for your army is in this book. And it will also include a digital code so that you can upload it into your Warhammer 40,000 app, which will allow you to have access to all the rules for your army on the app as well. So you buy the physical copy, you get the physical copy, but you also get digital access. Hopefully in the future, Games Workshop will realize that some people just want the rules and they're willing to pay, $30 for just the rules. So just let us get the digital download. Please do it, GW. I think it's going to be a lot better. And then lastly, we have the Games Workshop app, and this is freemium. So this is the Warhammer 40,000 app, and it's a great tool for just quickly and easily searching all of those documents I just mentioned. And you just type in the search bar what you're looking for, and it's going to give you all of the resources that you need. It works super, super well. Like 97% of the time, you just use the search bar, and then you don't have to go search through any of those documents that I just said, and it works so much better. It's also a very good list building. Now, it's not my favorite list builder. My favorite list builder is New Recruit. I've got no affiliation with them. I just use newrecruit.eu. That's what I recommend. But this list builder works amazingly well, and it's always going to be pretty freaking accurate, seeing as it comes directly from Games Workshop. Now, if you were using the free version of the app, you can still use the list builder, but it only allows you to use build one list at a time. So if you build your list, you can then delete it, build another list. If you are paying for, I believe it's Warhammer Plus, then at that point you can build as many armies as you want, and you don't have to worry about deleting it. I don't currently subscribe to Warhammer Plus, but it's not because Warhammer Plus is bad. It's just kind of uninteresting to me. Ideally, what I would like to see Games Workshop to do is to give us a $50 option. Let me pay you $50 and just give me the access to all of the rules for all the armies. Just do that. I would pay that every year. Heck, make it $70. I don't care. I would still pay it every single year. I think that would be a much better way of doing things. But in the meantime, the nice thing is when we look at all these documents that we need, the 6 main sources, core rules commentary, match play rules, data slate, Munitorum Field Manual, all of those are completely free. You have to pay $0 for them. Your Army Codex is the only thing you have to pay for, and then if you want a little added convenience, you can pay for the Games Workshop app, but if you don't want to, the free version of the app works beautifully well. So guys, this is what you need to do when you're learning the rules and when you're trying to reference certain things and you're trying to figure out where certain interactions are explained. It's going to be explained in one of these documents. They're very, very easy to reference, very easy to go through. You can always Control F if you want to search for a specific ruling on them. And it's going to help you a ton knowing exactly where you should look for each individual interaction. So with that, I'm going to sign off. Hopefully this was super valuable for you. My ASMR voice seems to be working because my little baby daughter has not woken up, which is great. With this, I'm going to sign off. Happy crumpin', crump on, baby. Bye-bye.